let me know how the volume is.
Welcome to the stream, everybody. Ready to get some debating in.
Dude.
The long-awaited.
Let's go, America!
We'll be victorious. Time will tell in 90 minutes.
13 minutes.
Yeah, 13 minutes till we get
Till
started.
the election.
All right, now Nico.
We're gonna be mostly sitting.
Nico, yeah, let's sit down. Let's get into it.
Let me turn off
Let's vibe out.
the song.
Perfect timing.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Nico, let's talk a little bit about what's going on tonight, right?
Let me post the route.
Okay, yeah,
quick.
get the post up. But I mean, Kamala's whole campaign strategy has kind of just been like avoiding all media presence, like avoiding doing interviews, avoiding doing town halls, right?
Yeah.
She's playing the Biden 2020 playbook, and because of that, the unscripted moments that she does have carry a lot of significance.
Yes.
And so, I mean, this is going to be really important for her because Trump has sort of like his ceiling. Like, people know who Trump is,
Okay,
right?
cool.
People know what he wants to do. She's more of like the unknown factor. So I feel like it's a lot riskier for her, but there's also a lot of
changed
potential.
though, dude.
Yeah.
She started acting more
Cheers,
like
my
Biden,
friend.
and they stopped calling her the change candidate, bro.
Yeah, pretty much. I think she does have a good chance tonight because, like, she's unpredictable, right? So she can come at it from a lot of different angles. Like,
She's pretty predictable.
pretty scripted. But
Yeah.
tonight she's not gonna be scripted. That's the thing, right? Is she hasn't made a lot of appearances like this before.
But you know what? They shut the mics off, so in a way, like they're protecting her.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean,
'Cause they-
ABC is definitely gonna try to make her look good in any way fucking possible.
100%. Dude, he's gonna bitch so hard that they were shitty to him.
But Trump's always been able to go past the bullshit. Like, people don't view him as a politician, and I think that helps him in a lot of ways because he can kind of just say whatever the fuck he wants.
Yes. That's his biggest W.
But I do want to look at something on this market real quick. So,
Okay.
yeah, I just move it to the other screen and then.
Yeah,
can see
move
it?
it to that. Oh, is it fucking? Oh no, it's flashbacks to 2016.
Okay, so this is the current betting market that we got. Looks like Trump's the favorite, but only by a little bit. This is going to change throughout the night, I'm sure, and we're going to be following it every step of the way. Prediction markets, probably the most accurate way to predict the election, especially since polls have been off like so much in the last few elections. Right? So this is my source for what I think is. And you know something about
Do you think
bro?
Trump is gonna win?
Bro, let me show you something crazy.
I think it's time to bet on Kamala because she's the underdog and make some fucking money.
thing that's
You
helping
know?
Kamala is she doesn't have very big expectations. People are kind of expecting her to be a little rusty, to be a little like, how would you say it? Like canned politician.
Hmm? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the light's great.
Nice show.
Okay, look at this. Look at this, Nico. So,
Yeah.
something I figured out on this website.
You got comments?
They got comments first of all, but it's actually even better than comments because you can click on someone's profile and see how much they've won or lost by betting on this
Oh.
shit. Look at this guy. I specifically went to this fucking guy.
Filthy animal.
Filthy animal. Look at
Is
this
he
shit.
nailing these predictions?
He's minus 145,000.
Oh, he sucks.
Bro, and all of his bets are like, will Trump be president in 2022? Like, just a deranged like Trump guy that,
Yeah.
that thinks,
Oh my
like,
God.
thinks they're gonna overturn the election.
Will Israel
somehow.
invade Lebanon before November?
Yeah, like it's the most random. Like, will Pete Buttigieg be the VP? Like, yeah, no, brother. This guy's down fucking 145K.
Dude, would you if today if you had to put money on Kamala or Trump, who would you?
I think it's like I kind of follow what Sauger says on this, which is like it's pretty much a flip of a coin. So, I mean, I might as well pick the one that I like, right? Which is Kamala.
I think it's flip of a coin.
I think it's
today.
really cool.
If it was today.
If it was today, I think Trump would probably win.
I think
I don't know. It's
more
really close.
people
It's really
don't
close.
like him than like the biggest.
But I think a lot of people view him
The
as a
tent-
necessary evil.
The tent is AOC and Cheney ran.
That is a pretty fucking big
okay,
tent.
bro. That's
But-
a massive tent.
But Republicans are actually kind of using like they're trying to say that they're the anti-war hawk party.
Peace, bro.
Peace out, bro. Good to see
Tune
you.
in the chat if you want.
They're trying to say that Republicans are the party against war, which
I hate
is
that.
kind of crazy. Like
Dude, I
was talking to my dad about
It's tragic.
Iran, and it's like, oh, Trump assassinated that guy. Like he showed Iran what the fuck was going on. Well, isn't that like the most pro-war thing you could do? Assassinate another country's leader? Like,
yeah, exactly.
you guys
bro.
remember that? Like, there were weeks where we thought we might be going to war with Iran, and a lot of people still think that Trump wants to do that. I mean, maybe he would get Israel to do it for us, but
Sad.
getting hit with ads. Install ad block. God damn it!
Oh, that's like an
I know.
in.
I know. It's like.
I guess they're all okay. Not the most.
I mean, ABC would be the.
ABC's
best.
not even streaming it from their YouTube.
That's
NBC's
whack.
got
I guess
it.
C-SPAN you can't go wrong with, right?
Well, I'm just doing the. I guess it is. Should have.
Second one.
Dude, the all the Saugers and everybody's
this
of
is
the
probably
world.
good.
Yeah, this hasn't started yet. That's in 8 minutes.
8 fucking
8
minutes.
Motherfucking minutes.
And we're gonna find out what's going on. What are your thoughts, though? You think?
I
mean,
think
who do you think's gonna perform?
I think they're really teeing up Kamala. If it just depends if Kamala's gonna go fucking copy Biden or not. If she doesn't copy Biden, she'll do great.
What do you think is the best thing she could do to start off?
Abortion.
Okay, yes. But I think in general she should just be like super aggressive against Trump right at the start.
Oh,
try to
yeah.
get him heat.
Bro, Joe Biden didn't call him a criminal.
Yep.
Didn't bring
He
up
said felon, but that's
so
about
much
it,
shit you
yeah.
don't bring up. It's like, dude, bring it up.
Like she should call
Bring
him
it up,
a
shit on
fucking-
him.
She should call him a rapist.
And
she
he-
should call him January 6th. She should talk about that.
He needs to talk about jobs, the
Yep.
economy, and the border.
Oh,
Borders
he's gonna
are,
say border
Borders
like
are.
50 times. Bro.
What are like the drinking game bets?
Oh, you can see how many times they think they're gonna say a certain thing.
Yeah, do you know where to
If you go
find
What
that?
will Trump say at the debate? Like, check that one.
Abortion, 84%.
Yeah, move it over.
Borders
so they can see
are
it.
for sure. Oh yeah.
How many times? MAGA 3+, border 15+.
What's the least likely thing they got on here?
Looks like what's that 5% one? There was 5%. Epstein.
Epstein. Okay, he's definitely not gonna say
0%
Epstein.
chance he's talking about Epstein.
No
0%
shot.
chance.
Cheers, Jehovah's Witness. Oh yeah, we do.
Cheers,
Jehovah's
Uni.
Witness.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good night.
Uni. You know Uni?
Yeah.
That's how Uni, dude.
Shout out Uni.
You know that we had to watch the tampon.
Had to.
Had to be.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
good
it's
now.
already fucking.
Oh yeah, there we go.
They need to look at the marriages he's had.
But no, I mean, obviously abortion, but I don't
6 minutes.
I think that she can beat him on the economy as well, though. I think it's possible.
I think that's tough, bro. Because
Yeah.
people are just not feeling a good economy, bro.
I voted for Reagan.
That's true.
They do
But
not
it,
feel
it'll
it.
be interesting to see how much space she tries to take from Biden. Like, if she
stand up
just
to
had a
the
moment
people.
where
What
she
I'm
just
hoping
came
to
out
see
and
tonight
said,
is
like,
that Donald Trump
I
will
am
be
not Joe Biden, and she
bastardized
just said
by
that,
one party,
I think
but
that
he
would be a really
loses
good
big,
moment.
And Kamala will win.
Okay, Susan's
Yo,
there.
how's
in
the audio?
New
Let me know if the
Orleans.
audio
Now,
sucks.
Yeah, let us know how the
path
audio is
to
going,
Texas
guys.
if the
We're
T-
trying to
the
Is
electoral
that
college,
are we louder than the
means
TV or
that
TV
these
louder than
candidates
us? Is
have
it
to
decent?
win some crucial states. We showed you Georgia being one of them. The New York Times latest poll, Siena College in that state.
I
Take
think
a
we're
look
li-
at
I think it sounded good. I did a
Pennsylvania, where
quick
the
little
candidates
check.
are
Yeah, I
tonight
heard you doing that,
for
but let's
tonight's
see what the
debate.
chat says.
And
What's up,
here, the
chat?
president again leading by just 1 point. This is a neck and neck. This is a
I'm gonna get my
tie
phone
in
charger
the swing state
real
of
quick.
Pennsylvania. Carter, in Valley City, North Dakota, and Independent.
Let's look at some
Carter,
more of
what
these
do you
bets
wanna
on
hear
here.
tonight.
Fuck, it's raining.
Love to hear from this debate is honestly an attack against logical fallacies. Let's look.
I mean,
at
fake
Kamala
news
Harris. Let's
only
look
have
for policies,
56%.
and let's have her
That's
take
free
on
money.
Donald Trump's ad
Comrade
hominem,
Kamala,
and
that's
honestly,
free
quite
money.
frankly,
He
his
says that
red
every
herring
single
attack
time.
against Kamala Harris and his
MAGA,
own policy to
duh.
other people's to take off that spotlight. Look at the essence of debate in America and how Kamala Harris,
What's
Donald
Kamala
Trump,
gonna
Joe
say
Biden
though?
have taken
What's
it away.
Kamala gonna say, guys?
People are the judges, and they deserve to be convinced of arguments.
I
and
heard
have
about that
constructive
union.
critique
Yeah, that's
and
really
criticism
messed
to
up.
them. And look who stripped that away. Very
What will
essence
Kamala
of
say
them,
at the debate?
which is honestly disgusting. So
Okay,
I hope that
abortion,
Kamala Harris
duh.
can get out there and take
Project
it head on and be
2025,
the person
duh.
who brings back real debate.
She's only
in
gonna say
America.
border 5
All right.
times. Okay.
That's Carter there in North Dakota.
This is like the fucking
Next
prediction
caller,
mark.
Tony, comes from Supply, North Carolina, Republican.
We got 4 minutes
Tony,
left.
before
4
we hear
minutes.
from you, take a look at
Let's
the
see some more of
New
these
York Times
fucking-
polling
this
out
guy?
of your state, another battleground state, and it's 48.
Wait, bro, I think I found him. Wait, look at this
for the
comment.
Vice President, 47%.
I think I found him.
For the former
The real? Oh, no
Tom
way.
as well.
Let's check his
Carolina.
prediction.
Tony,
Let's check.
Republican?
It's no way.
Oh, he's up 3.5 grand.
thank
He's
you
not
for
doing
taking
too
my
bad.
call.
Okay.
It's gotta be fake.
Yeah, there's no fucking way. That's actually
Fake.
There's no way that is actually Stephen
There
Blundell.
is
Not a
so
chance.
much personality.
All right, let's go back to full
And
screen.
We're Americans.
We are minutes away
And it
from
really
seeing what the
bothers
fuck is gonna
me
happen in this
when
country.
you
Yeah,
hear
it's very
as much
unpredictable.
hatred.
But
Minutos.
I'm in for a
Hear
show
the
either
people's
way. We're in for a
voices on
fucking
both
show.
sides.
Yeah, I
if
think.
you want.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
mean,
That's
the
perfect, I
reason
think.
I'm watching the debate
Are you
this
in the
evening,
shot?
I am a Republican.
You are not in the
I
shot.
do plan to vote for Donald Trump. However, I am watching
it off,
the
por favor.
debate. I want to hear policy on both sides. I had planned to vote for Jimmy Carter
Shall
years
we?
ago,
Cheers, my friends.
and when I
Cheers,
changed my mind was the night before I
Happy
voted,
debate.
when the economic report came out.
We did last
and
time.
Yeah.
It continued to trend
I
down.
mean, maybe try to, like, in general, keep it out of
Good
the
job,
shot,
Ezzy.
but, yeah.
Good job, Ezzy, not
Not
dressing like a
yet
bum this
totally
time.
Dude, he
my
looked
mind,
fresh, right? He
even
looks
though
fresh.
I'm a Republican, I'm an American first.
So, Tony,
Good check.
could the Vice President
check.
convince you to vote for her?
How?
Clip this
And
to
if
you.
so, how?
Give him a
know.
360.
I don't know why you said, oh, I gotta put it on the wire.
She shares policy.
Yeah, just clip it right there.
We're all
Yeah.
feds around here.
The stuff that they have been pushing, the liberal agenda,
God.
as far as
No way.
the electric vehicles. I have a brother,
It's
and
gonna be
his
loose.
neighbor
Yeah,
has
that's
one,
serious.
and he could fill
As
up
long
his
as it works.
vehicle 4 times
Yeah.
a month.
You don't want to
This
get
thing's
hurt.
so ticked.
Turn
for
this
what
shit
it
off.
costs
Wait,
him
this is
to
the off
charge
button.
his
Just hold
vehicle
that.
one
If
time.
you need to.
He said his electric
Okay.
vehicle,
Someone say
totally
fit check,
electric
though?
vehicle, is
Someone say
absolutely
fit check?
bankrupt.
Hey!
And so
Don't say
pushing
fit check.
What are we,
these
groomsmen?
policies,
The fit check?
I want to hear more mainstream.
Dude, I stepped
Nick
on a
it eat.
cigarette. I stepped on a cigarette,
Okay,
bro.
so
I
Tony,
apologize.
Yes, sir.
do you
It's
be-
unraveled.
Do
What-
you
There'll be many
let me
cigarettes
sit
believe
in
that
my-
the New York Times poll that we showed you is accurate then? Essentially,
I added
a
Bella
tie
to
in
this
your state?
Discord, so all she's gotta do is hop in. We're
No
in.
rush.
camera.
We're here for 90 minutes at least.
Areas.
Too many
And
cameras.
most of the blue areas
I couldn't
are
use that
more
one, bro.
heavily
Alright.
populated.
All right, I'm in my Discord
But
channel.
I do think North
Oh,
Carolina.
you're in it?
I
You're in
left.
the
I
Discord server?
requested Bella.
Okay.
And that is
Tony, I want to
Alright,
show
guys, I
you
wanna
and-
play
and
some
others
Warzone.
that it's not just the New York Times
Yeah,
poll.
we'll take it all down. bro.
We're
Sorry.
actually about to see
And
if
this
there's gonna be a
tweeted
real
out
Warzone
by-
or not.
Yeah, on God.
We're about to find that out.
Reporter
Yeah, hell yeah. We
Clear
need
this,
we need a new Call of
Poll
Duty. Is that
changes in their
okay?
polling
Your
model.
sheet.
North
Yes.
Carolina
I
moves
can't do
from
this.
a small
I'm
lead
dude,
for
we
the
literally
Democrats
did it on
to
stream
to
the
a
whole night.
tie, while
Don't
Pennsylvania
matter.
tightens a bit with a
Okay.
few
I'm pretty
polls.
sure we're not even
Polls
allowed to-
beyond
I'm
that.
really-
We're not
you
allowed
can
to
turn it
do-
off if you
We're
want.
not allowed to do
Into
anything that we're
tonight's
doing right now.
debate. So there
Just so you
But
guys
we're
are
fucking
really-
Americans and we don't give a
Washington
fuck.
We don't give a
Post
fuck.
polling showed you a little bit from the New York
I'm gonna bring the
Times
keyboard and
polling
mouse over here. That's
ahead
what
of
I'm gonna
tonight's
do.
That's
debate.
smart. That's
Of course,
smart.
people, the candidates, the voters, the media will all
One-
be looking
It's
at
9
the polls
Minute.
post-debate.
Oh, are we
As
live
well.
on the stream? On that stream?
Ernest in
This is
Georgia,
C-SPAN.
Democratic
But is it
caller.
live though?
Yeah, this is a live
Okay,
stream.
cool. Oh yeah, yeah.
Ernest, you with us in Georgia? We're listening to you.
Yeah, I'm
essentially tied in the polls
we
nationally
go.
and in the key battlegrounds, including right
Are they
here
gonna
in
meet
Pennsylvania,
face-to-face?
all still very
Yeah,
much
they've
Yeah,
never met
are you kidding
before.
me?
ABC
They've
News
never-
presidential.
Yeah.
Okay, are they gonna
First
shake
right
hands?
now.
Are they gonna shake hands?
Yes.
Yes.
Is an
I
ABC
vote no.
News
They're
special.
not
No.
gonna
The
shake
most
hands.
Yes, they're gonna
consequential
shake
moment
hands.
of this campaign.
I don't think so.
Kamala Harris.
then,
we will chart
then we're fucked.
way forward.
Donald
Trump has
Trump.
never shaken hands with any opponent.
Oh, really? Oh, then I
He
changed
might
my
have with
answer.
Hillary. He might
I
have
thought
with
they,
Hillary.
I thought they
Historic.
fucking did.
Definitely not Biden. He might have with
The
Hillary. I
ABC
don't know.
News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
You guys want cookies?
I'm not
I
right.
got
right.
tape,
Thank you for
bro.
joining us for tonight's
I'm gonna
ABC
eat some
News
tape.
presidential
After like
debate.
two
We want to
Heinens.
welcome viewers watching on
Oh,
ABC
true.
and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this
They're
unprecedented
stalling.
race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis.
You guys
Tonight's
put on a
meeting
show.
could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala
This,
Harris,
by the
is
way,
her
the first
since
debate
President Biden
is always
withdrew
the
from
most
race on
viewed.
July
Like, this is
21st.
the most.
It might
important
be the
debate,
only
hands
debate
down.
we're gonna get.
President
Yeah, we
Donald
might. I
Trump
think
in
they'll do
June.
at least one
Since
more.
then,
think we're-
this race has
How much
taken
is
on
normally?
Depends how this
You're
goes.
supposed to normally do like
No,
three.
three.
Three, and then the
Tonight's
VPs
debate,
do
90
one.
minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The
Yeah,
candidates
right.
will have 2
You
minutes
believe
to answer
that?
questions,
You
and
think
this
no
is the
questions?
clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience
No
here tonight in
notes.
this hall at the National Constitution
Well,
Center.
we're not
This is an
using this
intimate
one.
setting.
Well, Biden's
Two
not here. That's
candidates
why.
who have
This one
never
we're
met.
not.
The worst
President
idea.
Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final
I'll read
closing
chat.
statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome
Bro,
the
make the
candidates to the
cam
stage.
smaller.
Vice President Kamala
Make it
Harris
smaller?
and President
What do you mean
Donald
smaller?
Trump.
Facundo.
Bro, it's good. It's small enough, bro.
Then make it smaller. Shake hands.
Kamala Harris.
Boom!
To the name.
She's the one who came to him too.
Why do we owe that?
That shows
Good
assertiveness.
evening. We are looking forward to a spirited.
Make the cam smaller.
I did. I
let's
did.
get
He
I
wasn't
said
about
perfect.
that.
We'll begin tonight with the issue that
Minimize
voters repeatedly
cam
say
and
is
blow
their number
up.
one
Oh,
issue, and that is the
20.
economy and the cost of living in
Hey.
this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Block Kamala.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Are Americans better off?
I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their
rebuttal
children,
is-
and
yeah,
I
but you guys
intend
are in
on
office right
extending
now.
a
What's that?
tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those
Child
young
tax credit,
families
that's a
can
good
afford
point
to
for
buy
her.
a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children.
Love child tax credits.
My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner.
Okay,
I
let's
love
get
our
votes.
small businesses.
I agree.
My plan is to give a $50,000 tax
Yeah,
deduction
by the way,
to
make sure
start
you
up small
argue in the
businesses,
chat, guys. Make
knowing
sure
they
you're,
are part of the
like,
backbone of
arguing.
America's
Make sure you
economy.
add each other and you're
My
like,
opponent,
fuck
on the
you,
other
bro.
hand,
They're
his
arguing.
plan
Yeah, make
is
sure
to
you
do
do
what
that,
he has
guys.
done before,
Don't argue,
which is
guys.
to provide a
kidding.
tax cut for billionaires and big corporations,
All right.
which will result
Gucci.
in $5 trillion to America's deficit.
Oh.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax,
We don't like hearing
which would
numbers,
be a
bro.
20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to
20%
get through the
tariff
month.
is pretty fucking
Economists
crazy
have
as an
said
idea.
that
Like,
Trump
the fact that
sales
he's
tax
running
would
on that
actually
and
result
everyone's just
for
fine
middle
with
class
it.
families in about $4,000
They passed the
more
cost
a
on
year.
On us, yes,
Because
yes.
of
Thank
passed
his
the cost.
policies and his ideas
What just happened?
about
He's gotta
what should
subscribe or
be
something.
the backs
did
of
we?
middle class
Yeah.
people paying for tax cuts
Somebody
for
follow or
billionaires.
something. That's
President
out.
Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of
Yeah,
all, I have
well,
no sales
hold up,
tax.
Trump.
It's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries.
Thank you,
Other
whatever
countries are
that
going
was.
to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking
the Mexico City
jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us.
Let's talk about
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all, in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook.
Right there.
A bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess
that's
some
a
good,
fact.
some bad.
You can't read.
But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris.
So
20% of the COVID.
Donald Trump has no plan for you.
That is pretty crazy.
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
The chat bigger.
What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd
I mean,
invite you to
realistically,
know
higher
that
tariffs
Donald Trump
would
actually
probably
has
cause a
no
recession.
plan for you
Going into a
because
trade
he is
war
more interested in
never
defending
makes you
himself
a better
than he is in
economy
looking
initially,
out for
right?
you.
But it might help over time, but definitely at first.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
He looks pretty
just to
toned down
finish
right
off,
now. He came in.
He doesn't look like he's on anything either.
He looked like he listened to
Biden's
somebody.
plan, and it's like 4 sentences. Like run,
At least
spot,
they're not attacking
run.
each other. Talk
4
about plans.
sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year.
This is an
Do
important
you
question.
believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
If he just talks about the border on this
What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
You can't talk about anything.
We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. You heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out. When a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and
China would say
policies
Taiwan
like
is China,
they have.
no?
I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she
They
believed
would
3 years
like,
ago
why are you
and
trying
4
to act
years
like you're
ago
two
is
different
out the
things?
window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
NVIDIA is
She's
an
gone to
American
my
company,
philosophy.
and they're the
But
leader in
if she ever
AI
got elected,
technology.
she'd change
To
it.
be clear.
And it will
AI
be the end of our country.
absolutely.
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her
Marxist.
father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump. Thank you. Lindsay?
All the immigrants
I want to
coming
turn
in
to
are
the issue
criminals.
of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the first
I'll bet money on
president
it
in
that Trump's
American
answer is
history.
pro-life.
Then last
No, he's
month,
gonna
you
be
said that your
Vegas
administration would
sorry,
be great for
pro-choice,
women
I meant
and their
to say.
reproductive
Pro-abortion.
rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job. But the governor before, he said the baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's
They're correcting him.
Madam Vice President, I want to get your response
And not
to
even-
President Trump.
Oh my
well,
God.
as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States
Damn, he's
Supreme
gonna
Court
lose this
with the
election.
intention that they would undo the
That's
protections of
crazy.
Roe v. Wade.
Let's check the.
That's a
They
big
did
loser for him.
exactly
abortion.
as he
That's
intended.
crazy.
And
It's a
now,
big
in
loser for
over
him.
20
Donald Trump is
states,
gonna lose
there
his
are
election.
Trump abortion bans,
I'm not
which
voting.
make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide
big,
health
what
care.
it's
In
saying,
one
bro.
state,
This is-
it provides prison for life.
It's time to bet
Trump
money on
abortion
Kamala.
bans that make
She's
no
looking
exception even
competent,
for
like,
rape
no
and
doubt.
incest,
Yeah,
which
sounds
understand
great.
what that
I think
means.
she's pulling like an
A
Obama
survivor
play.
of a
Yes.
crime
Yeah.
of
She's
violation
trying to be as
their
vague as
body
possible so
does
people
not
can
have the
project
right to
whatever
make a
they
decision
want
about
onto
what
her.
happens
And
to their body
she
next.
becomes the
That is
candidate of-
immoral.
And
the
when she
people.
says that this
And
guy is a
one
liar,
does not have to
it
abandon
lands.
their faith
Everybody's like,
or
yes.
deeply held beliefs
lied.
to agree. The government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her
Like, it's
body.
such an
I have
easy
talked
dunk.
with women around
for a
our
slam dunk.
country.
What happened?
You want to talk about this is what people
Poker.
wanted?
Oh.
Pregnant
No,
women
it's-
who
I just
want to
had it
carry
somewhere.
a pregnancy to term, suffering
right
from a
there.
miscarriage,
Yeah,
being
it's the old
denied
one.
care
I use
in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to
No, no,
jail,
it's
and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
Easy dunk.
A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to
This is
carry a
Kamala.
pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting.
You made
What she
everybody
says
work
is an absolute lie.
to get the
And as
right
far
they
as the
already had
abortion
it
ban,
back.
no. I'm not in favor of abortion ban,
he's
but
taking
it doesn't
credit for
matter
it.
because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to
won't
pass?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House.
I got it.
She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't.
He said J.D.'s making shit up.
We don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatment.
This is so...
What is happening in our country? Working people, working women
And he changed
who
his stance
are working
on
one or
IVF.
two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond.
Yes.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
See the Cope on Twitter, right?
you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that?
Well, Mike's
Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question,
you
would you veto?
you could do
Why is her mic
abortions
on?
in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President
Oh my
Trump,
God.
thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration
Thank
and border
you.
security. We know it's an
Something
issue
else.
that's important to Republicans,
Can't deal with
Democrats,
it.
voters across the board
Stay
in
on
this
the
country.
economy, man.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the
she's
root
obviously gonna
causes
bring
of
up
migration
the
from
Frankfurt
Central
bill.
America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a
That's
record
the
high
border
in the
bill
Biden
that-
administration. This
that
past
he
June,
told
President
the
Biden
Republicans
imposed
to vote
tough new
no.
asylum restrictions. We
Because
know
he wanted
the
to
numbers
make it-
since
it would
then
give
have
Biden a
dropped
win.
significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of
she needs to
guns,
answer
drugs,
more than
and
just
human beings.
big thing.
And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that
I was
bill
just
would
gonna
have put
say it.
1,500 more
not
border
a
agents
real
on the
answer.
border to help
I was
those
just gonna
folks who are
say that
working there
he's
right
been-
now
he told them not to let
overtime
it
trying to
pass.
do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country.
Horrible.
That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time
actually surprised she's
where
saying
the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in
Look up the border bill,
solutions,
y'all.
who
Langford
actually
was the name of the
addresses
senator
the
that
problems
proposed
at
it.
hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
whoever you know,
And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president
onto
who
something.
actually puts you first.
people
And
know
I pledge
everything
to you
about
that I
Trump,
will.
so-
Vice President Harris,
They
thank
get
you.
shot at
President Trump,
Trump
on
rally.
that point, I want to get your
Well,
response.
I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And then
AI.
showing
She's
them
paying
in a
all
different
the
light.
people
So
to be
she
there.
can't talk about that.
Absolutely.
People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back.
He does have
Our
pretty big
country
ones.
is
But
being
recently,
lost. We're a failing nation. And it
Already have
happened
been big.
3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield,
We're actually gonna be
Ohio,
safer.
and ABC News.
We're gonna
WCHF,
watch
the
this
city
from a
manager
movie in
there.
real time.
He
That's
told
why I
us
wanna put it
there
on
have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured,
We're
or
already,
abused
what,
by individuals
half an hour in?
within the
1/3 of the
immigrant
way
community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on
this is a
television say
clear-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe.
Oh, fuck my life, dude. I just fucking elbowed the keyboard.
There's going to be one of those.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney,
good.
and John McCain.
It doesn't look good on the
including the
screen.
endorsement of former Vice President
TV.
Dick
It looks
Cheney
better on the
and
screen.
Congress
It looks better
member
on the screen,
Liz
yeah.
Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on
we went
who
down one.
the former president is, if he
He
didn't
did
make
go
it
down
clear
one.
already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former
That was
chief of
me right
staff,
there.
a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United
She didn't
States.
go up one. She
His
didn't go
former
up one.
national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His
I'm not
former
voting for her, but I'm
Secretary
not
of
voting for him.
Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick
Make it a
minute to
little
respond.
bigger.
I think that's good.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did
Well, leave it out.
bad things
Leave
or
it
a bad
out. Just
job.
leave it out.
I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan
We'll
and the
drag it in
Taliban and the
periodically.
13
Once
people
it changes,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
stop.
yeah.
who
Periodically.
were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the
Keep
family.
an eye on it.
They
Someone will
didn't
watch
fire. They
that.
should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled
asleep.
situations
he
anybody
did-
strong point
has
for
ever
Trump,
seen.
is that
He did drop
So
one.
when somebody
This is
does
a
a
strong
bad
point for
job,
Trump.
I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they? But they have
Another one
done
writes
such
a
a poor
book.
job, and they never fire anybody. Look at
They
the
never
economy,
fire
look at the
anybody.
inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists, they have the same people. That's a good way not to have
economists were
books
appointed
written
by
about
Trump,
you.
by the way, Jerome
But
Powell.
just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican
Jerome Powell's
in
the
history by far.
Chairman of the Fed.
In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
And you had second place, my
Let
guy.
me continue on immigration. It was
You know
what we
that
wanted to
meme?
talk
It's
about
like
earlier, so let's get back to your
track, it's
deportation
like, remember the guy in first place,
proposal
like, what's
that the vice
what's
president
fastest
has
guy alive,
reacted
everything,
to as
everything.
well.
Second place,
President Trump,
nothing.
you
He's like
called
two
this the
seats, but he's
largest
like
domestic
0.1
deportation
millisecond
operation in
behind.
the history of our
And he
country.
gets
You say you would
nothing.
use the National
That's
Guard,
Trump.
and you say if things
I
get out
know.
of control,
He's
you'd
the
have
guy
no
king of
problem
Vegas.
using
He's
the
like,
U.S. military.
I broke the record.
You also
Yeah,
said you
but
would
another
use
guy-
local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you
How
believe
would you
that
deport
number is
11
much
million
higher.
I guarantee
Take
you
us
his
through this.
answers
What
on
does
it.
this look like? Will authorities
We're
be
gonna
going
arrest the
door to door in this
criminals
country?
That's what he's going to say.
It is much higher because of them.
Oh, it's
They
higher
allowed
first.
criminals, many, many millions of criminals.
They're all
They
criminals.
allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
sending
And
all the
this will
criminals
be
here.
one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by
Did I
what
already
they've
turn
done.
this off?
There's never been anything
button right
done
here?
like this at all. They've
Can I just mute
destroyed
it?
the fabric of our country.
If I
Millions of
turn it
people
off?
let in, and all
If I
over the
turn it back on, it'll
world,
work?
crime is
Okay.
down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
Violent crime,
just like their
especially.
number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
So it's not
Well,
actually
let's talk
Biden's
about
DOJ.
extreme and
Biden's
understand the
appointing
context in which this election in 2024 is taking
And
place.
some Republicans?
The
Could
United
you
States
argue that
Supreme
some of
Court
them have been
recently
aimed
ruled
for
that
by
the former
people who
president
paid
would
for
essentially
Biden's
be
campaign? Maybe
immune
that's a
from
thing, I
any
don't know, but
misconduct
it's
if
not
he were
literally
to
people
enter
Biden
the White
appointed.
House again.
It's not federal charges.
Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain
And Trump says
for
in
members of our
response to
military.
that he's gonna
Understand
get, like,
what it
revenge
would
and
mean
he's
if
gonna
Donald Trump
weaponize
were
his
back in the
DOJ.
White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him.
I mean, that would be
It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump,
Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
That's true.
My position is that we have got
federal
to
land.
invest
Popular?
in
Fracking.
diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have
Unfortunately, it
had
is
the
very popular in
largest
Pennsylvania
increase
specifically,
in
which-
domestic oil
like
production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign
But
oil.
you can help green energy
As it
without
relates
banning
to my
fracking,
values, let me
right?
tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed
It's the
bankruptcy
ticket to
6
wealth
times,
generation for a lot of people.
is a value that I bring to my
it's
work
like
to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes,
3 million
increase
more
by
homes.
3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be
Put 'em on your
that
shoulders,
president.
Cam.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever.
Against
she gave
it?
all
That's a
that
good
stuff
thing.
up very wrongly, very horribly,
Not
and
popular.
everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
He's doing what she did.
She went out,
That's the best thing he's done
she
the whole
went out
night.
in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this.
That was the
She
best
wants to
sentence
confiscate
ever.
your guns,
That was the
and
best
she will
sentence
never
ever.
allow
Rewind
fracking in
that. We gotta
Pennsylvania.
run that back.
If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish
He
one
said
thing
they wanted
so
to
important in my opinion.
sex change operations
So,
on
I
illegal
got
immigrants in
this is
prison.
going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started
was
getting
so
rid of
good.
it, and the prices were going up.
Sex changes
the
on
roof.
illegal
They
immigrants
immediately
in
let
prison.
these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar,
That was
where
so
they
good.
need a
She
whole
went up
desert
another
to get
percent.
some energy to come out. You ever see a
Is that
solar
what
plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar.
It's
But
within
they take
3. Trump's lead has been cut in
400,
half.
500 acres
On the betting
of
market.
desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank
It's
you.
refreshing.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days.
Yeah, now
And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day. The officers
Trump was up
coming under
6%.
attack.
She went
Fans
down.
in the
Did
West
she not
Wing
see-
say you
No,
watched
she
it
was at
unfold
40
on television
it
off
was
the Oval
46
Office.
to 52
You
when
did
it
send out
started.
tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
January 6th
You just
question?
said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing
God
people
damn it.
that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember
border
that.
over-
This
She
is what he
was
has
the
to
border
do.
czar.
This is the
She
smart
doesn't want to be
strategy.
called
If you
the
bet
border
on the
czar because
border
she's
over,
embarrassed by the border. In
you're
fact, she
fucking
said
hyped
at the
right
beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's
at
because
50.
she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted?
He's
When are
kinda
the
giving
people
low
that
end.
burned
You think it's gonna
down
be
Minneapolis
50-50
going
by
to be
the end?
prosecuted? Or in Seattle,
She's
they went
been
into
ahead,
Seattle.
like,
They took
before.
over a
It's
big
not like she's
percentage
never
of the
been.
city of
We still
Seattle.
have 45
When are
more
those
minutes.
people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me.
Over
Nancy
$800 million
Pelosi
have
rejected
been
me. It
wagered
was
on
just
Play Market for
2 weeks ago. Her
2024
daughter has a
election
tape of her saying
800
she
mils?
is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape.
And I bet it's going
It
up a
would
lot
have never
tonight.
happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security.
He's
Nancy
claiming Nancy
Pelosi was
Pelosi
responsible.
and the mayor of
She didn't do her
Washington.
job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond.
I was
They're
at
being
Capitol on
snarky
January
at Trump,
6th.
bro.
ABC
I
is
was
doing her some
the
favors.
Vice
They are
President
being
elect.
snarky.
I was
ABC is
also
definitely
an
helping
acting senator. I was there.
A little bit.
And on that day,
Just
the President
enough
of the United
that
States
most
incited
people
a
probably
violent
won't
mob
notice it.
And it's
to
kind of
attack
called for.
our nation's
Go to bed.
capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say?
Very fine
There
people.
were fine people on each side.
Good.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand back. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say,
Ladies and
we don't
gentlemen,
have
I remember
to go
where I
back.
was when that happened, bro.
Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about
Is
attacking
January
the
6th a big deal?
foundations of our democracy because
In
you
my
don't like
opinion,
the outcome.
they made it up.
And be clear.
Just the fact
on
that
that
they
point,
have never
Donald Trump, the
delayed the
candidate,
certification of an
has said
election
in this
before,
election there will be a
and the
bloodbath.
fact that
If
It's pretty
this-
hype.
And the outcome of this election is
like,
not to his
why
liking.
does Trump have a new vice president? Do
Let's
you
turn
actually
the
know?
page on this. Let's not go
Why
back.
isn't he running with Mike
Let's
Pence again?
chart
Mike
a
Pence
course
doesn't want to be
for
his
the
president,
future.
vice president.
You know
Not
why?
going
You know why?
backwards to the
Because
past.
he's
Let me
crazy.
just follow up here.
Because Trump asked
It was
Mike
a different
Pence
term, and
not
it was
to
a term
certify the
that
election
related
results.
to energy because they have destroyed our
they
energy
were-
business.
they were
That was
yelling,
a
he wouldn't
bloodbath.
do it.
Hang Mike
Also,
Pence.
on Charlottesville,
They
that story has been,
proposed
as you
when they
would say,
a
voted
bald
in
slate of
Laura
electors from
Ingraham,
like 6 different
Sean
states that said
insanity.
Trump won.
Jesse, all of these
I
people,
guess, but
they come
I gotta look
if they
into
go
it.
Look
an
into it.
extra
Look
sentence, they will
Because
see
you
it was
literally
perfect.
asked
It
Mike
was
Pence to
debunked
not
in almost
certify the
every
election,
newspaper,
and
but
if
they
that would've
still bring it
happened,
up, just like they bring
then it
2025
would've went
up.
back to the House
They
of
bring all of this stuff up.
Representatives,
I
which was
ask you
obviously
this: you talk about
Republican-controlled at the
the
time.
Capitol. Why are we
would've
allowing
won.
these millions of people to come through on the southern border?
Border
How come
again.
she's not doing it?
Border
And I'll
again.
tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it.
It's
I
what
would
he
say
did.
we
She
would
went up
both
another
leave
percent.
this debate
Yeah,
right
Oh
I
now.
thought that was an
I'd like to
8.
see her go down to
that was
Washington,
an 8.
D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C.
59.
and let her sign a bill
Oh,
to
dude,
close
she
up
might
the
be
border.
up by the
Because
end
they
of
have
the
the
night.
right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States,
Border,
you'll get him
the
out
border,
of bed,
man.
you'll wake him
Border's
up
good
at 4
for him.
o'clock in
He's
the
just gotta
afternoon, you say,
spam the
come on,
border
come
button.
on down to the office, let's
Spam
sign a
the
bill.
border button.
If he signs a
cool down.
bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President.
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you've lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look,
Sarcastic.
there's so much proof. All you have to do is look
know why
at
he's
it. And they
saying
should
that?
have
You
sent
ain't
it back to
backtrack.
the
Let's hear it.
legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch
They're
all
all
these pieces of
criminals.
video. I didn't
They're all
detect the
rape,
sarcasm,
no,
lost
and
by
they
a
all
whisker, we
want
didn't quite make it.
transgender sex
And we should just
surgeries
point out
while
here as
they're in
clarification,
prison.
and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases
So
in front of
good.
many judges, many of
The
them are
judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
evidence.
standing. That's the other thing.
committed a crime.
They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can
why
you
he
imagine a
has to
system
backtrack on that.
where
Kinda
a
true.
person
You
in an
can't say
election
he
doesn't have
lost.
standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost.
Most of
if
those
you look
cases
at the
were
facts,
not
and I'd
dismissed
love to
on
have you
standing,
do
though.
a special on it.
Show them
I'll
that.
show you Georgia, and I'll show you
What map?
Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have
with the
so
phone
many
working
facts
out.
and statistics.
for the
But you know
states?
what?
Or like
That
that
doesn't
everything?
matter.
Oh,
Because we
they're
have to
tied.
solve the problem that we have
Oh
right
my
now.
God,
That's old
49,
news. And the problem that we have right now
As
is
usual,
we
you
have
are the
a
1%
nation
that
in
decides, he
decline,
says.
and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about
still
something
think
that's
it's a
come up
coin
in the
flip.
last
It
couple
is
of
what it
days.
is.
This
I
was a
think it's
post
a
from
coin flip.
President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military
that's true,
leaders,
Ed?
some of whom worked with you,
Are
and they
world
say you're a
leaders laughing at
disgrace.
Trump?
I know they're
And when you
laughing
then
at
talk
us right
in
now.
this way, in a
Yeah,
presidential
totally.
debate,
They're laughing
and
at
deny
all- they're laughing at all of
over
America.
and
We're
over
laughing
again,
at
our
Trump.
court cases you
Didn't
have
they laugh at Kamala?
lost because you did,
They
in
won't even
fact,
talk to
lose
her.
that
What
election.
about the Muslim countries that
It
don't
leads
talk
one
to
to
women?
believe that perhaps we do not
I
have
think
in
they still
the
talk.
candidate
I
to
think they
my
have to
right the
deal with-
temperament.
I don't think that
I
they just don't
or
acknowledge
the
them.
ability to not be
lady that was-
confused
They might
about
not be able to
fact.
vote or
President
whatever,
That's
but
Germany,
deeply
that one lady
troubling, and the
definitely
American
talked to.
people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man.
he goes straight
he's
to
a
the
tough
president
person.
of Hungary for some
Smart.
reason. Okay.
Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
That's what he said.
They were afraid
Yeah,
of him. China was
the guy he's
afraid,
talking
and I
about,
don't
the
like to use
president
the
of
word
Hungary,
afraid,
he's
but I'm just
super
quoting him.
pro-Trump, super
China was
conservative,
afraid of him. North
And he
Korea
used,
was
like, a
afraid
lot
of
Trump
him.
is
of
good on
Look at
foreign
what's going
policy.
on with
Trump
North
beats
Korea, by the way.
Trump beats
He
Kamala
said
foreign
Russia was
policy
afraid
any
of him.
day.
I ended the Nord Stream
Any
2
day,
pipeline.
Trump beats Kamala
and
foreign
Biden
policy.
put it
I mean,
back
I
on day
personally
one,
support
but he
Israel.
ended the
I
XL
personally
pipeline.
support
Any
The
day.
XL pipeline
Israel, but I also
in our
support-
country.
I support
He
the
ended
little
that.
guys
But he let the
getting
Russians
fucked.
build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest
Trump beats
pipeline
Kamala foreign
in the world.
policy any day.
Look, Viktor
That's a
Orban
fact.
None
said
of it
it.
would have happened.
He said
North
the
Korea
most
built
respected,
more
most
nukes.
feared
Happened.
person
They
is
built
Donald
more
Trump.
nukes.
We had
Afghanistan
no
never would
problems when
happen.
Trump was president.
Dude.
But when this weak,
Ukraine,
When
pathetic
Trump was
man
president, that was the
you
first
saw
time
at a
America
debate just a
went
few
to
months
North
ago,
Korea.
that if he weren't in that debate,
Since
he'd be
fucking
running
ever.
instead of her.
And
She
he
got
was-
no
he
votes. He
threatened
got
Kim
14
Jong-un on
million
Twitter,
votes. What
though.
you did, you talk about a threat to
Before he met
democracy.
with him.
He
Like
got
a
14
while
million
before
votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He
called him
hates
Little
her.
Rocket
He
Man.
can't stand her.
Little
But he
Rocket
got
Man.
14 million votes. They threw
That's
him
what he
out.
called him.
How
She
does that
got
translate
0
in
votes.
North
And
Korean?
when she
I don't
ran,
know, but
she was the
when
first
you're
one to
making
leave because she
those sorts
failed.
of statements
And now
about
she's
world
running.
leaders that
I
have
don't
nukes,
understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
I don't know if
because
that's
your time
I
is up.
think we're going to
anti-war.
do
I don't
very
know.
well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held.
Let's see.
Americans
This is actually
among
going to be
them.
a
They're
bill.
both
Vice
gonna be
President
pro-Israel.
Harris in
It's gonna be
December,
boring
you
as fuck.
said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying
This is a
international
play. This is a
humanitarian
play
law
for her.
must be
She doesn't do
respected.
that.
Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7th,
You said that already.
Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock,
pray they
also
ask us
understanding
to
that
cut
we
the
must chart
money,
a
the
course
funding.
for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the
Two-state solution
Palestinians.
is big.
But the one thing
That's
I will
actually a
assure you
big
always,
separation
I will
from
always give Israel the
traditional
ability to
pro-Israel
defend
stuff.
itself, in particular as it relates to
Two-state solution, in
Iran
my opinion, that's a
and
big
any
thing that she
threat
said
that
about.
Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution
ask if
where
she's-
we can
if she's gonna
rebuild
cut the
Gaza,
funding.
where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu
tired
and
on this.
also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started.
Yeah,
if I were president,
Never
Russia
happened.
would have
Iran
never,
was broke.
ever.
He's
I
gonna
know
say
Putin
Iran was
very
broke.
well. He would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. if she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one.
You think
She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump.
Iran was broke.
Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known
I mean, the fact that he said Israel's
Donald
not
Trump
exist,
is weak
like,
and
that's a little
wrong
bit of
on
a
national
far reach.
security and foreign policy.
And
It is
everyone
well
knows.
known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant.
Oh, why did she say the
It is
Ukraine?
well known
That's
he
not good.
exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known
You don't think talking about
that
Ukraine
these
is good?
dictators
said
and
the
autocrats
Ukraine.
are rooting
That's not what you're supposed
for
to
you
say.
to be president again
Oh,
because
really?
they're so
Does it
clear.
matter?
They can
Yeah, 'cause, like,
manipulate you
that
with
makes it sound like
flattery
it's part of
and
Russia, I
favors.
think.
And that is why
Like, I know that
so
Ukraine
many
people are against
military
it. I know
leaders
that.
who you have worked with
rest of
have
them
told
Yeah,
me
everyone else is
you are a
chill with it.
disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down.
He's just talking about the same
Putin
thing.
endorsed her last week. Said, I hope she wins. And
It's honestly
if you're
entertaining
Trump,
a
because
little
what
bit,
he's
but-
gotten
but
away
also,
with is absolutely
it's what he has
incredible.
to
It
do.
wouldn't have happened with
Yeah.
You
me.
can only talk
The
about
leaders
like, two
of
things.
other
guess it is the
countries think
smartest
that
play
they're
for us.
weak
It's the only thing
and
you can do.
I don't know.
incompetent,
I don't
and they
know.
are.
What do you
They're
think?
If I was
vastly
Trump, I would
incompetent.
100%
And I
do
You
the same
think
thing.
just talking about the border
Why
every
does
time is
Biden
a
go
smart
in
play,
and
or
kill
is
the
it a bad
Keystone
play?
Pipeline
What
If you listen to
and
Trump, he
approve the
sounds like a
single
madman.
biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe.
This is
Because they're
bad.
weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets
President
paid a
Trump.
lot of
make
money.
some
Thank
good
you. We have a
points,
lot
though.
of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News
Oh,
presidential
commercial
debate
break.
from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh my God. At the
She's
commercial break, Kamala Harris is officially up in the market.
She has pulled ahead by
48,
1%.
49.
Let's go big screen during the commercial. Let's see the whole map. All right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. Here it is.
49,
Oh,
49
it's
at the
tied
map.
again.
Pennsylvania is fucking beige.
53%.
What does beige mean?
Beige is like very, very close. So
That's
Nevada,
good.
Nevada,
It started off light red, no?
Yeah, definitely.
Started off light red.
Georgia's
Trump's red.
My name
North
is
Carolina's
Dylan Wells, and I'm a
blue.
campaign
The border
reporter at the
shit
Washington
works.
Post.
I'm
I wanted
telling
to join
you,
the Washington
he's
Post
doing
and
the
listen
smart-
to the political team in
He's
business
doing the smart
and cover
shit.
the people who are actually
I'm not
going to
gonna
determine
lie.
who wins
He's
this
doing
election. Being out
border,
in the field is absolutely essential to covering the
border,
campaign. I'm
border.
constantly on the
Abortion
trail,
was bad,
going
but it
to
was at the
different candidates'
beginning.
events,
They kind of
driving around the
in a
country,
way that
flying
helps
around the
them.
country.
It does
There's a
sort of
lot of
help.
voters who are very
Basically, what the
hesitant
map
about
is right
this general
now
election.
is
I would say my most
like
interesting
most of Kamala's
interviews in the
states, I
past
think, are
year
pretty
covering the
locked
presidential
down.
race have not been with
And
the candidates
the ones that are
themselves,
in
but
the
with
middle,
the voters
Trump
who are out in the
basically has to
country
win
and
all.
Can I
hearing
say something
about what
that's
issues are
bullshit?
motivating or not
People-
motivating them to turn out to
They
vote.
are
I think for
against
me, the greatest sense
abolishing
of
the
accomplishment in
electoral
my
college
reporting
because it's
comes
like,
when
oh, then
a
people will
reader
only go
is
to
able
the
to tell
big
me
I think
that
the
my
electoral
story
college
is
is
how they
pretty
better
decent.
understand
No, but hold on,
the
hold on.
issue.
Yeah, that's
and
what people say.
right?
me being able to tell those
But
stories that
we
they
have
might
the
not
electoral
otherwise
college,
hear
and it's
from the
coming down to
campaign trail
one
is
fucking
really
state.
a privilege,
Yeah.
and we're as a
It's the
campaign
same
team
shit.
trying to tell those stories as much as
Doesn't make any
possible.
sense.
Mother Teresa could not
In
be
a way,
more
I
gracious.
agree, but I
Welcome
do
to the
think
Trump
it's
Trials
important,
Sidebar,
like,
a new podcast
that
from the
each
Washington
state has a
Post.
say,
Hi, I'm Libby Casey,
and
and
the
every
electoral
week,
college
alongside
obviously
Each state should have a
gives
say.
smaller
Tillman,
states.
we
But if
break
you
down
have,
the
if
latest
there's
news
more
and
people,
legal
then they
battles
should have
as
a bigger
Donald
say.
Trump
And they
ramps
do.
up
I
his
mean, California has
presidential
way more
campaign.
electoral
The
votes than
ramifications are
Wyoming, right?
serious.
They
The
already
first
do have a
time
much
a
bigger
US
say. I
president
think it's at a fair
is in
point,
court
to
as a
tell you the
defendant.
truth.
But we also have
Dude,
some
it's
fun.
The only thing
So,
I might
if you could have any
change
job in the
is-
court other than
I
journalist,
mean, I
what
do
would it
think
be?
the
I would
like,
enjoy
the
being
fact
the
that if
bailiff.
you win by
Nobody
one
messes
vote,
with the
then
bailiff.
it's
You've
the whole
never read a
state. That's
story
little
about someone
bullshit.
I
messing
don't
with the
like the
bailiff.
idea.
They could
Your
do it a
colleagues
little
share
bit
their inside
proportionately, I
scoops.
think.
Do you
I
have
don't
a
like
sense
the
that the
idea
jury
that
has
you can
that
lose a popular
weight
vote
bearing
and
on them?
become
They
president.
see all of
It
us.
doesn't
They
make
know
any
that they're
sense.
part of history.
Less people
And
voted
stick
for you
around
and
to
you
get
win.
real. What are some of the
I don't
weird
hate that
nuggets and
idea.
things you've learned about jurors this
I
week?
mean,
So you're talking about his
if
public access
let's
TV
let's
show.
just hypothetically say, let's say
Watch the
40.
Fuck
Sidebar
John
is
Quincy
Sidebar
Adams.
on
That guy's a
YouTube. Or
bitch.
listen
Let's
to
say
us
40
on
out
our
of
podcast
40 out of
platform
the 50
today.
states are Republican.
I'm
That's
Cleve
not how it
Woodson.
is.
I'm a
Let's just say
reporter for the
40 out of
Washington
the
Post.
50.
I work
Yeah.
for the
10
White House team.
biggest
I wanted to
states
come
are
to the
all
Washington
Democrat.
Post because it's some
Like,
of the best journalism that's
does it
going
really
on
make
in
sense that
America.
10
A
of the
typical day
states
at the
can
Post on the
overrule?
White
Because it's
House
not
feed
about
can sometimes
the
be
number
anything
of
but
states. It's
typical.
about the
But it
If
kind
the
of is
president
though, because
is
we're
in
the
town,
United
I'm also in
States.
town.
Like
If
we're
the
the
president is
united
traveling,
groups of
I
all
or one
these
of my
individual
colleagues are
little.
also
And the
traveling,
United
just writing
groups-
about what he's
I actually
not just
think
what
And the
does
he's
make
United
sense.
group
but
is
also
At the end of the
mostly
day,
impact
over here.
I'm
his
sorry,
story
Nico. At the end of the day,
and
you're
how
not going to convince
voters
me
Let's
that
see
the
over
electoral
here.
college
If I had to
doesn't make
describe the
sense. I think
it
it's a
makes
good
no
system.
sense.
one thing
I
that's
think it's
really
smart.
unique about our
I
coverage.
think
no sense.
We
it's
have
held us together
hypotheses,
for a long time.
but we don't
I
have
like the electoral.
assumptions. Trying to
You think
figure
it's
out
held us
where
together for a
people
long
actually
time?
are as opposed to where
Or
we assume
why?
they are, I think it's
Because
something that
each
makes us really
state
stick.
gets its
Critical,
say
objective
in the
journalism.
correct way.
But
That's
they don't
really
get it
important
say.
because
We don't get it
because
say. We fucking do nothing.
Everyone's trying to sell you
The
something.
bigger
And
states
what I
do
try to
get
do,
more
what
of a
we
say,
try to
right?
do
Oh.
is
But
to
there's
just
still
call it
some
like it is.
proportional
This is what is
for
going
the
on
smaller
in your
states. I
world,
think
and
it's
the
fair. It's a
information
fucking
you need
weird
to make your
game.
own informed decision.
They should what what they should
I
do
am your
really
justice.
is
I
make
am your retribution.
it's
took
not
on
make it a
perpetrators of
like
all kinds.
you win by one vote, you get
know
all the
Donald
electorals. It
Trump's
should be
type.
proportional.
I agree. I think that is one of the
Bro,
issues.
Donald Trump is live on
It should
Instagram
be
with
proportional.
40,000 viewers.
He's on IG Live during the commercial.
40K?
You're lying. What's he doing on IG Live during the commercial?
That's a little more than us.
From landmark Supreme Court decisions to the
Just a little
sentencing
bit.
of Donald Trump.
Wait,
We'll be on
dude, we're gonna
location
clip it though.
reporting
That's not
live
doing the sound
from the
effects,
Republican
man.
Exactly.
and Democratic National
Hey,
Convention.
shout out if you're watching this fucking.
If you're watching this motherfucker right now, we love you, and we want you to vote. We want you to get out there and have your voice heard.
No on 3. No on 3.
Your opinion matters.
We love you.
In this society.
No.
Go on and vote. I don't give a fuck who you vote for. Go vote.
No on 3.
Participate.
Like the Washington Post.
Yes on 3.
As an American,
Like the stream.
Yeah.
and like that fucking stream, please. What happened to the thing? It's fucked up
From
again?
the National
Oh, because I
Constitution
made it
Center in
mad.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
Here again,
Yo.
Oh, what's up, Bella?
Historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue
They're
here. and I
coming
wanna
back
turn to the war
on.
in
Do you hear?
Ukraine.
Oh wait, hold
2.5
on.
years
Can you hear
into
it?
this
The-
Hold on.
Mr. President,
We can
it has
stream
been
it,
the
I
position
think,
of the
right?
Biden administration
Niggity, type 1
that
second.
we must defend Ukraine from
Type
Russia,
1
from
second.
Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
How do you do the soundboard
I want the war
on
to
Discord?
stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions,
Bella.
hundreds of billions of dollars when
Yes,
I
I
said
can hear you.
either
Let's
you pay
go.
up or we're not going to protect you anymore.
What do you
so
think
that's
of the
maybe
night so
one of the
far,
reasons
Bella?
they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But
I think
you
she's
take a
doing
look
pretty
at
good.
what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275
I heard they're
billion.
eating cats
They're
and
into
dogs in
100 to
Springfield,
150.
I heard
They're
they're
to
giving
equalize.
operations
With
on
that being
trans
said,
people
I want to
in
get the war
prison.
settled.
in prison.
I know
Illegal
Illegal
aliens
aliens.
in prison
Putin
are
very
having
well.
sex
They
My
have a
friend
good
who eats
relationship,
cats and
and they
dogs is
respect
freaking out right now.
your president. Okay, they respect
Yeah, you got a
me.
lot
They
of
don't
friends.
respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what
What?
reason? He hasn't even made a phone
Turn your
call
camera
in
on,
2 years to
dude.
Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody.
Yo,
They
Nikki.
don't even try
What's
to
up?
get it.
How
That
you
is a
doing?
war
Trump
that's
is doing
dying
worse
to be
than
settled.
GameStop
I
earnings
will
right
get it
now.
settled before I even become
Yeah, you're
president.
fucked.
If I
They
win,
made a
when I'm
net income
president-elect,
this quarter.
and what
That
I'll
doesn't
do
happen
is
every
I'll speak to
quarter.
one, I'll
We
speak
can
to
be
the
grateful
other,
for it,
I'll get them
okay? We
together.
can be grateful.
That war would have never happened. And in fact,
gonna
when
make
I
money
saw
selling
Putin
shares,
after
too.
I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it
can't
after
feel
I
this.
left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It
Understandable.
must be a good,
No.
strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't.
Where's the-
Because Biden had no idea
Where's the
how to talk
soundboard
to
on
him.
the phone?
He had no idea how to stop it.
I don't
and
know
now
on
you have
the phone
millions
where
of
it is.
people
Yeah.
dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself,
World War
David.
III, Bella. Are you
World
excited
War
for
III
it?
is incoming.
And we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's.
Yeah,
in
where
the
is
Joe
he?
Biden should
They
take his
threw him
land
out of
because
the
he's
Where
campaign
is
like
he?
a dog. We
Where
don't even
is
know.
he?
Where's
Is he our
Hunter?
president? But we have a
Where
president
is Hunter?
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your
Yep.
time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the
Wait, you
US
guys turn your
best
camera
interest
on.
to get this war finished
Oh, yeah,
and
that-
just get it done. Negotiate a deal
you got the-
because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running
There you
against
go.
me.
Easy.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that
What
this
is
war
that?
would be
One
over
sec.
within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I
Tay-Tay,
actually
say hi.
met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky, and I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's
You're on
eastern
the
flank,
stream.
to
Wait,
Poland
there's too
and
much going
Romania.
on. I have it on the TV
And through
and
the work that I and others
Well,
did, we brought
we can
50
stop
countries
streaming
together
online.
to support Ukraine in its righteous
No.
defense.
What, you just
And
want my
because
reaction?
of our support,
I had to walk away
because
when he
of
started
the
talking about
air defense,
reproductive
the
rights.
ammunition, the artillery,
Bro,
the
is
javelins,
that Kaylin?
the
He
Abrams
said the
tanks that we
craziest
have
sentence.
provided.
Is that Kaylin?
Ukraine stands as an independent
Yeah,
and free
Kaylin's right
country.
here.
If Donald Trump were
Kaylin,
president,
what up,
I
man?
would
You
be sitting
hung?
in Kyiv right
What
now.
up, you hung?
And
What's up?
understand what that would
Dab
mean.
on
Because
him.
Putin's
Dab
agenda
on
is
him. Yo.
not just
Hey, yo,
about
down on the
Ukraine.
stream, down on the stream. Keep
Understand why the
On the stream
European
this time.
allies and
Oh!
are so thankful that
That
you
was
are
fire.
no longer president, and that
Bruh.
we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance
I
the
got
world
it.
has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve
Oh my God. Give me 1
the
second.
ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise,
Ukrainians should
Putin
be
would
able
be
to fight
sitting
for
in
their
Kyiv
independence,
with
in
his
my
eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you. Ukraine
That's
tonight.
up.
Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted
That
to
was
respond
good.
to something you said
Mike's
earlier.
off.
And please,
talking.
I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women,
Put on
but
top
he
of
would
us
have been
on the
sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does
Nobody
have
ever
that.
thinks about how Putin
Something
has
we don't even like to talk about.
Him
Nobody
only
likes to
talking
talk
about the
it.
border is
But just so
working.
you understand,
Yeah, so
they
far it
sent
has
her
not
to
worked.
negotiate peace before this
he
war
has made
started.
things.
3
He
days
talks about-
later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin. And she did, and the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden, in my opinion. I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet
Caitlin
with
said, by the
President
way,
Zelensky, I've now met
Trump's
with him
hair is
over
not what
5
it used to
times.
be.
The reality is, it has been about standing as America always should.
It's
As a
it's
leader
thinning out.
upholding international rules and
I think
norms.
so.
As a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you
On the other
adore
one? Oh, shit, he is.
strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility
He's made it
in terms
so
of
easy to dump
ensuring
on
that there is stability and ensuring we
she
stand up
looks
for our principles
solid.
and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European
This is
nations
kind of a
both
dub
on
for him.
trade
This
and
is a
on
bit of a
NATO.
worse point.
I
I
got
think
them
Biden
to
has
pay
still
up
made
by
NATO
saying one of the
stronger,
statements you made
but
before. If you
he
don't
is right.
pay,
Us
he's
paying
not
less-
going to protect you.
Us
Otherwise, we
paying
won't
less
have it. He
sells
said it
well.
was one of the
Sells
most
well.
But it's not like
incredible
they're
jobs that
not
he's
paying,
ever seen
like,
done.
They're still
Thank
paying
you.
what they were
I
paying
want to turn to
when Trump was
Afghanistan.
president.
It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
God
4
bless.
presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United
$300
States
million a
military
day?
who is in active duty in a combat zone
think
in
about how
any
much
war zone
Out of
around
your
the world
check
for the first time
as
this
out of your
century.
motherfucking
Think about how much
But
a
let's
rocket
understand
costs.
how we got to where we are.
A drone.
Donald Trump,
They
when he
take
was
that out of
president,
Those
negotiated
military drones
one of
aren't
the
the cheap little
weakest
ones you get on
deals you can
Amazon. I'll
imagine.
tell
He
you
calls
that.
himself a deal
shits
maker.
cost a
Even
lot
his
of money
national
to make.
security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
Bro,
He
what the
bypassed
fuck?
the Afghan government.
I
He
make $200
negotiated
a day,
directly
that's a
with a
good day for
terrorist
me.
organization called the Taliban.
Fucking
The
people are
negotiation
crazy.
involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility
That's a good
of
point.
the President
That's a
of the
strong
United
one.
States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to how he has constantly disparaged and demeaned members
By
of our
one, yeah.
military,
He's back
fallen
ahead.
soldiers,
For a little
and
minute,
the work
yeah.
that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her
What map
saying
are you
that
pulling
began
up?
the negotiations
Yeah, thank
with
you.
the
It's the
Taliban.
polling market, the betting market.
It's a
If you
yeah,
take
it's
a
a
look at
betting
it,
website.
It's been up and down.
It's the biggest one
The
out there.
Taliban was
you can see how
killing
much, like, let's
our
see how much has
soldiers,
been bet on here.
a lot
Let's
of
just
them,
see.
with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved.
$858
And
million has
Abdul
been bet.
is the head of the Taliban. He is still the
Oh
head
my
of the
God.
Taliban.
Yeah.
And I told Abdul, don't do
Definitely
it
a
anymore.
lot
You do it anymore, you're going to have
insiders
problems.
maybe, and
he
people
said,
who
why do you
might
send me
know
a picture
stuff,
of
who
my
knows?
house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military
I mean,
equipment.
this was
behind. Just to finish,
This final
It was
point is-
kind of like an
blew it.
incompetent moment.
The
from our
agreement said
military.
you have to
It
do
kinda
this,
can't be
this,
denied at a
this,
certain
this, this,
extent.
and they
talking about
didn't
leaving
do it.
Afghanistan?
They didn't do it.
I mean, I think
The
it's good that we
agreement
got
was-
out, absolutely.
Was terminated
but
by us
the fact that
because
like
they
Ameri- like, a
didn't
good amount
do
of
what they
American
were
troops
supposed to
died doing
do.
it, like,
I wanna move
obviously,
These
it's a moment of
people did
incompetence.
the worst withdrawal, and
can't really
in
deny
my
that. I
opinion,
don't
the
think.
most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way,
It's a
that's why
decent
Russia
The most
attacked
embarrassing moment in the
Ukraine,
history of our country
because
is
they
leaving
saw how
That's a
incompetent
stretch.
she
Yeah, that's a
and her
crazy
boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President,
Oh,
you
what a
recently said
fucking
of Vice
lame
President
ass-
Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years
What
ago.
happened, Nico?
When she happened to
Wow,
turn
fucking-
black.
what a
and now
stupid
she wants to
subject.
be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out.
Look at her.
And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean,
This would be a
honestly, I
good
think
line
it's
of attack,
a
except
tragedy
that people
we
have
have
eyes,
someone
and they
who
can see that-
wants to be president who has consistently,
Yeah.
over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this
90
kind of
minute thing, right?
approach
Yeah,
that is just
about-
constantly
maybe a
trying
little
to
more for the
divide
commercial,
us,
but
and
yeah.
especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
That he was from Kenya.
And I think the American people
He was the one who really brought
He
that
really
up,
was
like-
the
Want
main
better
guy.
than this.
Yeah.
Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country. and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty.
They got Kamala.
And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person.
Which one's
ultimately.
still the biggest one?
And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says.
That doesn't land,
She
man.
is Biden.
She's just gonna
the
say, "I'm
worst
not Biden."
inflation
That's all
we've
she's
ever
gonna
had.
say.
A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly,
Um,
I am
a
not
lot
Joe
of people
Biden,
say that
and I am
she's
certainly
losing
not
be-
Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new
Wait, one
generation
more
of
time.
leadership
Can you
for
cut
our
out?
country. One who
I've seen a lot of
believes
people say that
in
she's like
what is
losing
possible,
momentum
one who
because
brings a sense of
she hasn't
optimism
separated herself from
about
Biden
what we
enough.
can do
True.
instead
Definitely.
of always
Facts.
disparaging
It's
the
her biggest
American
fuck up.
She
people.
does need to.
I believe in
Yeah.
what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a
Biggest
plan.
fuck
Let's
up.
talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction
Policy shit.
to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000
obviously,
for
logically,
young
he's gonna
families for the
respond with
first
a
year of your
policy.
child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the
Turn my
American
phone,
dream
Nico.
by offering a help
Yeah,
with
fuck it.
down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really
I sent my
want
mom
tonight,
that. This is like,
as
I'm
opposed to a
for her.
conversation that is constantly about belittling
That much for
and
homeowners?
name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just
I
recently.
just
Lindsay,
think
go ahead.
President Trump,
No, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice
All
that I
of
need to
it.
respond
No,
to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he
President
has said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you
Unless
said,
we
quote,
can
we're
do
working on
something
it.
much
So
better.
tonight, 9 years after you
That's the
first
most
started running,
Trumpism
do you have a
statement of all
plan?
time.
And can you tell us what
What's
it
his
is?
plan?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the
What a
top people,
noble
and they're very
decision.
good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
I have concepts
I'm
of
not
a
president right now. But if
He was president.
we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system.
This is a good
2
question.
years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time.
Yeah, that's real.
When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero.
Captured.
The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass as
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made
of...
a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd
She
like to
just
get to that's important for a
didn't
number of
advocate for
Americans,
that.
in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs.
Facts.
And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
One more break?
The ABC News
Bella,
presidential
come
debate
back.
will continue after this.
What are you thinking, bro?
Tired.
Tired? What are you saying?
I could go for some pizza though.
I'm hungry.
Some Wawa pizza.
He went down 3 points to another 3 points. If I go to Wawa, I'm getting a club sandwich. Pennsylvania still up to Trump.
Not getting anything.
I guess that's what his map is.
My name is Dylan Wells, and I'm a campaign reporter at the Washington Post. I wanted to join the Washington Post to work with the best political team in the business and cover the people who are actually going to determine who wins this election. Being out in the field is absolutely essential to covering the campaign. I'm constantly on the trail, going to different candidates' events, driving around the country, flying around the country. There's a lot of voters who are really hesitant about this general election. I would say my most interesting interviews in the past year covering the presidential race have not been with the candidates themselves, but with the voters who are out in the country and hearing about what issues are motivating or not motivating them to turn out to vote. I think for me, the greatest sense of accomplishment in my reporting comes when a reader is able to tell me that my story is how they better understood an issue. And I think just really being able to tell those stories that we might not otherwise hear from the campaign trail is really a privilege. And we're, as a campaign team, trying to tell those stories as much as possible.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges.
Welcome to the Trump Trials Sidebar, a new podcast from the Washington Post. Hi, I'm Libby Casey, and every week, alongside Rhonda Colvin and James Homan, we break down the latest news and legal battles as Donald Trump ramps up his presidential campaign. The ramifications are serious.
The first time a U.S. president is in court as a defendant.
But we also have some fun. So Rhonda, if you could have any job in the court other than journalist, what would it be?
I would enjoy being the bailiff.
Nobody messes with the bailiff.
No one, you've never read a story about someone messing with the bailiff.
Our colleagues share their inside scoops. Do you have a sense that the jury has that weight bearing on them?
They see all of us. They know that they're part of history.
And stick around to get real. What are some of the weird nuggets and things you've learned about jurors this week?
There was a guy talking about his public access TV show.
Watch the Trump Trials Sidebar on YouTube or listen to us on your favorite podcast platform today.
I'm Cleve Wootson.
I'm
I'm a
back
reporter
on.
for the Washington Post. I work for the White House team. I wanted to come to the Washington Post because it's
So
some
what,
of
it's
the
just
best
closing
journalism
statements,
that's going
I'm
on in
guessing,
America.
after this?
A typical day at the Post on the White House beat can sometimes be anything but typical. If the president is in town, I'm also in town. If the president is traveling, I or one of my colleagues are also traveling. I'm just writing about what he's, not just what he's doing, but also writing about the impact of what he's doing and how voters, how Americans feel about that. If I had to describe the political team here, one thing that's really unique about our coverage, we have hypotheses, but we don't have assumptions. Trying to figure out where people actually are as opposed to where we assume they are, I think is something that makes us really distinct.
Unchanged.
Critical, objective
Trump's leading
journalism
50 to
is
49.
really
Still
important at
super
this
close.
point because
It's
everyone's
pretty much
trying to
been
sell you
close the whole way,
something.
except-
And what
Have
I
you
try
ever-
to
look at
do,
this
what
graph.
we try to
Have you-
do is to
So
just
when
call
Trump
it
got
like
shot,
it is. This is what is
he was
going
at
on in your
70%
world and the information you need to make your own
That's pretty
informed
crazy,
decision.
right?
The red line.
Yeah, he's
I
the
am
red
your
line.
warrior.
Okay.
I am your
And
justice.
so Biden's this
I
blue
am your
line, which obviously
retribution.
goes to
I
zero.
took on
He
perpetrators
jumped
of
out.
all
And then
kinds.
there's Harris.
I know
And
Donald
she's been
Trump's
ahead
tight.
by like as much as like
The
what's-
2024
She's
election
only
is
ever
in
been
full
ahead like
swing.
9
For
or
every
10.
key campaign moment,
Never been
the
ahead by as
Washington
much as
Post
Trump
is
was back
there,
here.
bringing you
Is
live
that
coverage
based on date?
with insight and analysis.
This
From
is
landmark
Oh, yeah,
Supreme
August.
Court
prediction
decisions
market, so
to the
it's whatever the
sentencing
market
of Donald
is
Trump.
at. So people
We'll be
will
on
buy
location
shares of
reporting
Trump, or
live
they'll buy
from the
shares of
Republican
Kamala.
and Democratic
They trade
national
on a public
conventions
market.
and the presidential and vice presidential debates.
And it's mostly
It all
based on
leads
like
up to our
polls
2024
and-
election night special,
So it's saying
and
that-
events.
providing
So
real-time
it's
race
the
calls,
dates on the bottom.
live
so that-
updates from our
Like you can see
reporters
right
on
here,
the
like,
ground,
at the beginning of July,
monitoring the
Trump's at, like,
pivotal
60.
races
Then he
that will
almost- then he
determine
gets
the
shot,
balance
almost
of
dies, he
power
goes
in
to
Washington
70.
and the future of our
And now
country.
he's-
No
or
one covers
ever
politics
since
and elections
Biden
like
dropped
the
out,
Washington
he's been on the
Post,
decline a little
because
bit,
democracy
but it's still
dies in
razor
darkness.
close. I mean, he's up by 1 right now. Pretty close.
Live from the
It's gonna be a
National
close election
Constitution
one way or the
Center
other.
in
It's gonna be
Philadelphia,
decided by a few
Pennsylvania.
thousand votes and
Here
pretty soon.
again, David
100%.
Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President
There
Harris.
we go. Last things.
Kamala first.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the
Twitter
American
saying
people.
Trump won. What's Twitter
Vice
saying?
President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
What's Twitter saying?
So she just started by saying she's going to do
Actually,
this,
can't
she's
go on
going to
Twitter
do
on the
that,
screen.
she's
No
going to do
way.
all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in.
eating
You
pets.
believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel,
transgender,
we're not going to do
legal
things that
immigrants
are going
that
to
are trying
make
to get
this country
sex
strong, whether you
surgeries
like it or
in
not. Germany tried that,
That's the best
and within
moment.
1 year they were
That
back
is
to
the best
building
moment.
normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our
Illegal
country
alien, that's
for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
My God.
That was a show.
My God.
That was a
Live
show.
coverage with the Washington
If I've
Post
ever seen
of this simulcast ABC News debate. Join us now for live coverage.
We
as
end at
I'm joined by
49-49.
J.M. Rieger, senior video journalist,
It
and
ends
James
tied.
Coleman,
It ends
editorial
So we
columnist,
started.
as we digest
We
all
started.
of what we
I'm
witnessed.
95% sure we
Fireworks,
started
an
52
angry Trump, a
to
focused
46
Kamala Harris.
in favor of
both
Trump.
got across
So there
points
was
they
a
wanted to
6-point
make.
swing
But Kamala Harris was
for
able to
Kamala
flip
during the
Donald
course of
Trump
that
into
debate.
defensive mode.
Let's see what breaking points got to say. Let's find
What a
out.
post game. Bella, hop back in. Dude, I think, you know, her
Can
job
you
wasn't
pack
that
that up?
hard, and she fucking, what?
Can we pack that thing up?
Yes,
Lord.
yes. We're going to do a quick little debrief, and then we're Dipski out of here.
Yes,
You guys
sir.
are good. Don't worry about it. You guys are golden.
10, 15.
I do. We're gonna. I don't even really want to watch this on the stream. I just fucking.
Hello, everybody. We just watched that major presidential debate. Emily, unfortunately, had to step away, but three of us will hold down the fort. I'll be extra loud, all right? Double of the analysis. I'm sure that's not a problem for me. But in general, certainly something, some major moments. We've got a couple of clips and other things that we can break down for everybody. We will be taking some questions throughout the stream from our premium subscribers, so make sure you
Fucking mute. Fucking won, dude.
I think she
I think
won.
she won.
I don't think it was like a
The fact that it went
landslide, but yeah.
from he was up
Yeah.
to fucking dead
Tied,
high.
right dead even.
W.
That's a momentum shifter. That's a momentum shifter.
I think
Absolutely.
I don't think it moved that shit that much, but honestly, like, I've been saying she's good. Like, I think when the day comes, everyone's
Yeah.
gonna be like, okay, we can't fuck
We can't let what happen.
Trump. Like, it's just. We
I
can't
hope
do
so,
another
but
4
you never know,
years.
dude. I mean,
never know, dude. But
it's gonna come down to
I think people
Pennsylvania,
are gonna be
North
like,
Carolina.
The people of Pennsylvania are gonna be like,
North
can't do
Carolina,
this.
yo, I think she could win North Carolina. Honestly,
I think so.
Could flip that one.
Texas.
Nah, that's not. Let's be for real. Although, honestly, Texas would be more likely than Florida.
You think
I
that?
think Florida's like there's
I don't
no
think
way that he's Florida.
Oh,
I
this time,
genuinely
yeah.
think, yeah.
But in general,
In general, yeah, obviously Florida's usually closer. But this year,
fucking wild out here, man. Holy shit.
crazy.
I think it did more good for her than him though today. Even though it's probably not that much.
Yeah. At the end of the day, debates usually don't matter. I mean, we did just have one
The
that
Joe
caused
Biden
someone
one
to drop
that
out.
was the only one that ever mattered.
So that was a
ever.
pretty big one. But usually they don't matter that much. If it moves the momentums in the polls, that would be pretty big. That would show over the next.
Cause especially because she just dipped a little.
Yeah.
Down,
But
like Trump
people
as well.
did also just find out a lot about her. I do. in a way they didn't before.
Yeah, if you don't know
she
shit,
rose to the occasion.
If you
I
don't know,
do think.
If you don't know shit about Kamala and watch this, you're like, oh.
Like she's at least
she's
not that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you don't like her, at least she's not that guy.
You're fucking
know?
right.
They did make him look a little deranged.
God.
I do think.
Nobody made him do anything. Fucking sat there and did it.
Yeah. That was a good one though. I gotta say.
God.
That was a very interesting
Look at the saga
one.
cope.
I think it lived up to the hype. I actually do.
I think she definitely came in. She was solid. Did what she had to do. Hammered it. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Hopefully they do another one, man.
I think they will. I think they'll probably.
I don't think he won't.
We're gonna find out.
But if they do, you know where to watch it.
Yep. Know where to fucking watch it. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for tuning in. Shout out Ezzy for letting us do.
Shout out to Ezzy for letting us have his place.
Shout out Bella for hopping on for a little. But
everyone have a good night.
Everyone have a good night. We're outie.